Thank you once again for inviting me to share some thoughts on Chinuch, coming up to Yom Kippur and Sukkot particularly. As we mentioned last time, to discuss Chinuch is always a good thing, particularly that the Rabbi Rashab, as we know, the famous idea, said that just like it's a mitzvah to wear tefillin every day, it's a mitzvah to think about Chinuch every single day. In fact, what's not quoted in the Hayom Yom, but it's in the original letter, is that the Rabbi Rashab said this actually at a Simchas Torah Fabrengen. So it's good timing. The time is right, specifically now in Tishrei, to discuss and talk in Yonei Chinuch. Particularly we talk about a month like Tishrei. Today's topic is Zman Simchaseinu, how to get children excited about mitzvahs. In this month we know that the month of Tishrei is called Chodesh HaShvi. Chodesh HaShvi is doch muspa b'koil soveh, from the lashon of saturated, filled with mitzvahs, filled with inyanim, filled with minhagim. So when we talk about how to impart a love of mitzvahs in a way of zman simchaseinu, in a way that it should be with joy, with simcha, this is something which, of course, the things we're going to say really is shaykh, is relevant to the whole year round, but I think with particular emphasis during the upcoming days of Yom Kippur and particularly Sukkot. One of the things when we have a very, very busy month and there's a lot to do and a lot of mitzvahs and a lot of requirements, a lot of things we can't do, a lot of Yom Tov, a lot of Shabbos, especially this year with Shabbos and Yom Tov all the time, and sometimes children feel a bit restricted. The first thing we always have to remember is what the Rebbe refers to in many letters, but with a particular emphasis, that one of the things in Chinuch is to instill into our children a pride. Ga'ava Yehudis, the Rebbe calls it, the Jewish pride. The pride to be different, the pride that it's okay to be in the minority. Things like Echad Hoya Avram Avinu fought the whole world and he was the first Jew. Things that we need to often discuss and talk about with our children, the schus, the goydel inyan of being a yid, being a person who's able to follow Hashem's Torah mitzvahs, being a person that's able to know about the Torah and the mitzvahs and having the tremendous schus to be able to do it, to build that child, that pride the entire time. Coupled with the inyan that even if it's difficult sometimes, the Rebbe in one place talks about that we have to instill in children not only b'chol nafshecha, b'chol avavcha, b'chol nafshecha, but even the inyan of b'chol mo'idecha, which is mesiras nefesh, the idea of wanting to give up, the idea of wanting to commit, the idea of feeling proud. You know, there's the famous word that Rosh Hashanah is the inyan of Kabbalas oil. So there's a lashon in one of the letters, ayoch oba gishmaker, which means sometimes it is a burden, but it's a gishmaka burden, and that's we're proud to do it, we're happy to do it. That kind of general idea, that general philosophy, that general hashkafa to instill into children the entire time. But on a more specific level, I want to share a number of thoughts. First of all, we need to understand that children understand and pick up, particularly young children, pick up on subtle messages. Children have amazing antennas, and they pick up the Yiras Shamayim, the love of mitzvahs from their parents and from the home avir, from the home culture, especially as we talked about last time. And therefore, in that context, I want to just share a number of nakudas when it comes to the Yom Tov of Sukkot, particularly in the busy time of Chodesh Tishrei. First of all, it's really important. There's a ruach of calmness, mesinus. Some homes, as we know, get very stressed around Yom Tov. Everything, and therefore around the mitzvahs of Sukkah and Lulav and eating in the Sukkah and the Erev Yom Tov and the Erev Yom Kippur and so on and so forth, becomes one big stress. As I said, especially in a kfiyas like this year, where it's always Erev Yom Tov, Erev Shabbos and so on and so forth. It's really important to spend time planning of how things can be kept a bit simpler. Maybe the meals need to be not as elaborate. Maybe we need to examine how many guests. I mean, Achanasas Orchim is a very, very important thing. But at the same time, we also have to give time to our children. And we also have to make sure there's a calm and relaxed, positive avir and atmosphere in the home. So we need to plan that. We need to plan that, and we need to make sure that children should not remember Chodesh Tishrei, they should not remember Yontif as a time of stress, as a time of anger, chas v'shalom, as a time when everyone in the house is just irritable and going on everyone else's nerves and snapping very, very quickly and losing their temper. That's a very, very, very big, critical problem that can impact the hashkafa and the memories and the image of Yontif in a child's mind. That doesn't mean a house can't be busy. Busy is a good thing. Busy is a positive thing when children go up and they know that Erev Yontif is busy and Erev Shabbos is busy and Sukkot is even busier and so on. That's a good thing. But there's a tremendous difference between busy and stressed. The second thing, I think it's really important that we bear in mind this inyan. It's hard a little bit, but this concept, Bifrat Bizmanenu, where there's so many influences coming from the outside, is not only not to be stressed, but not to complain. There's a very, very fascinating halacha in Hilchos Pesach that says that a person should not say, Kama kosher Pesach alai. How difficult this Pesach is for me. Even though the Shulchan Aruch is melamed zchus, and it says that's talking about the Korban Pesach, not so much the cleaning for Pesach and so on, but nevertheless the Nakuda is clear. When children grow up and all they hear is, oh, how terrible it is and how much, so much to do and it's such a stress and how am I going to manage and so on and so forth, that leaves an impression on a child's mind that, again, the Yontif is one of stress and it's a negative experience because people are always complaining about it. And it's amazing what children pick up. I once heard a great story from a mechanech who was here in Sydney many, many years ago. And he told the following story about a kindergarten in Antwerp. In Antwerp it's very, very common that people speak Yiddish. Even regular families, they speak Yiddish. So in one particular preschool in a kindergarten in Antwerp, it was Friday morning, and the teacher made what every kindergarten in the world does, I suppose, and makes like a Shabbos party with the kids. And the Shabbos party has a Shabbos Abba, a Shabbos Tata, and a Shabbos Mama. And they light candles. One kid is officially the father, one kid is officially the mother. And then the mother lights the licht, and the father makes the kiddush. And so they set, that week the particular child was the father, the Shabbos father. He sits at the head of the table, and it's time for him to do his gig, his thing that he's supposed to do. And he sits down in the chair, and first of all he gives a big krechts, and he says, Oi, si givena shverevoch. Oi, it was a difficult week. Why? That's what he heard his father say every single Friday night. It's amazing what children pick up. So if we can, we need to kind of make sure, try at least, not to complain. Try and be positive, try and say good things, try and say, yes, it's busy, there's a lot to do, but Baruch Hashem, we can do it, Baruch Hashem, we have what to do it with. And we're looking forward to a Yontif, we're looking forward to sitting in the sukkah, we're looking forward to all the meals, we're looking forward to all the things, and the davening and the shul, and all the things that come with the Yontif. Because children have to really pick up a sense that there's an ahava for the mitzvah, there's a chibah for the mitzvah, that mitzvahs are precious, that Yontif is precious, and generally throughout the year, that the things we have to do, which are part of Avodas Hashem specifically, we hold dear and we hold precious. Now I want to talk about a very, very important inyan, I think, in chinuch as well. Particularly when it comes to the various mitzvahs, and particularly the mitzvahs that come mizman lezman. There's a tradition by Chassidim, is a word by Chassidim, that the hechsher mitzvah is grosser with the mitzvah. Which means the preparation for the mitzvah is sometimes greater and deeper than the mitzvah itself. Now of course, chas v'shalom, I'm not trying to undermine the zahirus, the meticulous observance of every single mitzvah. But what does that mean, that the hechsher mitzvah is greater than the mitzvah? The more we prepare for a mitzvah, the more relationship we have with the mitzvah. When we learn about the mitzvah, prepare for the mitzvah, when we talk about the mitzvah coming up, the more connection we have to the mitzvah. When we do a mitzvah and me are two different things. I can do a mitzvah, I can do it bihidur, I can do it the mitzvah with absolute all the chumras and all the hidurim, but I did it, I came, I went, and it's done. When I live with the mitzvah, when I talk about the mitzvah, when I prepare up for the mitzvah, when I lead up to the mitzvah, then I have a relationship with the mitzvah. And that translates amazingly into the inyan of chinuch. We cannot expect children to connect to a mitzvah. We cannot connect children to really have absorbed the Yiras Shamayim of eating in a sukkah and not eating chutz l'sukkah, or making sure we bench lulav and esrog properly, or do all the other mitzvahs and daven and all the things that we do during Chodesh Tishrei, if the mitzvahs come and go. There has to be in the house a hachana, a lead up to the mitzvah. So for example, one thing that has to happen is there have to be discussions at home. There have to be discussions about the upcoming mitzvah, both on a learning level, discussions about the halachas, maybe learning some halachas with our children, discussions about the tremendous simcha, the schus, about why we make shechayanu on a mitzvah, because we're so happy to become a new mitzvah. We have to tell stories about tzaddikim who were so excited to do the mitzvah. I remember telling my children when they were very young, again, I only tell stories that work, I told you this last time. I used to tell a story about Rabbi Yitzchak about this because the story I heard as a child and left an impression on me, how he stayed up the whole Sukkot night to wait for the first moment that he could bench lulav and esrog, and he ran to get the esrog and there was a glass shelf and he didn't see and he broke the glass by mistake. Or to show the kids videos of the Rebbe doing nanuim and the Rebbe's esrog and how beautiful it was, and the hadassim, so many hadassim and so on, to show videos of the Rebbe picking out lulavim and he would give lulavim to the guests and to the zocher b'goyrel and so on and so forth. Talking about the different types of esrogim, the hidurim, this year's schayre, is it good, it's not good, and so on and so forth. Discuss the dalad minim, discuss the sukkah. There needs to be a lot of talk. Talk about the mitzvahs, talk about the hidurim of the mitzvahs as we lead on, as we come closer to the yontif. Talk about mitzvahs, talk about how we're going to get other yidden to do the mitzvahs. Who are we going to invite into the sukkah, where are we going to go and find yidden to bench lulav and esrog, and who are we going to bring to shul on simchas Torah, and so on and so forth. And then there's another thing, and I think this is a thing which is so relevant, bizmaneinu, in our day. Now, I don't want to chas v'sholem do any Judaic store out of business, but we have a problem today because of the advancements of technology and all the resources that we have today. Today, mitzvahs have become increasingly easier to perform, which is a good thing on one level, but it's also a bad thing. Today, for example, when it comes Hanukkah, you don't have to do much. All you have to do is walk into a store. They've got in a triangle, they've got those little glasses with olive oil, best hechsher, cotton wicks. You can light Chanukah licht with alle hidurim, but you didn't do anything for it. I remember as a child, and I'm sure many of you have the same memory, my father coming home from work, Chanukah time, and then spending time rolling the wicks, putting in the oil, making sure it works, setting it up. It was a whole achana, it was a whole thing. Building a sukkah, and building a sukkah was a big job. If you were handy, it was good. If you weren't so handy, it was even worse. But finding material, putting up a sukkah, getting people to help you, putting on the schach before schach mats became such a common thing like it is today. I'm not chas v'sholem criticizing any of these things, and any of the things are kosher and mahadrin. But what I am saying is that the mitzvahs have become so easy. People who have the minhag to make decorations in their sukkah, which is not our minhag, but people who have that minhag, a Malika Tzait needs to spend a lot of time before sukkahs making the decoration. Today you walk into a store and in 5 seconds you've got them all. So today you can mamish in 10 minutes, you can buy a pop-up sukkah and a mat and buy decorations if you have that minhag and put it up and it's all done. And it's kosher and mahadrin. But it's missing the hechsher mitzvah. It's missing the lead up to the mitzvah, the discussion in the mitzvah. Very, very important, if you can, involve your children in the lead up. Maybe don't just buy a sukkah that's so easy to put up. Or don't get someone else to put it up. Don't get some high school kid who's making a few dollars, which is a nice thing, I suppose, but who's walking around and saying they can put up everyone's sukkah for you. Put it up yourself. Don't get someone to put up the schach. Put it up yourself. Make it an activity with your children, putting up the schach. Let them pass you the palm leaves. Let them pass you the schach. Let them pass you the mats, whatever the case is, but make it into an event. Make it into an exciting event. Involve your children. Take them with you when you choose a lulav and an esrog. Go to a few different stores. Pick out a lulav. Ask them their opinion. Is it nice? Is it not nice? What do you think? Teach them what's a good esrog. Teach them what's a good lulav. Involve them into the lead up. It's all part of the hechsher mitzvah. The more there's discussion about the mitzvah leading up to the mitzvah, the more there's involvement in creating the mitzvah, in making sure it happens, the more we have a relationship and a connection with the mitzvah, the more the mitzvah sticks, the more the child remembers the value, the importance, and the tayakite, the chavivus of the mitzvah and the hidur mitzvah. Explain to a child that's an expensive esrog, but it's worth it because we're going to invest. Obviously, it needs to be within reason, it needs to be affordability, and so on. But we're going to invest because for a mitzvah we do things. For a mitzvah, it's important. Just some other regular nakudas. Just in general, when we're talking about Yiras Shamayim, we're talking about trying to instill in children Yiras Shamayim. How does one do that? Yiras Shamayim is a value. It's hard to teach Yiras Shamayim. The way we teach Yiras Shamayim, I think, obviously, besides being a dugma chaya of someone that keeps mitzvahs behidur and with Yiras Shamayim and is nizar in a kutzeh shel yud of Shulchan Aruch, but also bring it into the culture of the home. For example, everyone around Yom Tov has shilas before Yom Kippur, before Sukkot, shilas on the Sukkah, shilas on the Lulav. Build a culture at home of asking a shilah. Not every shilah can be shared with children, but those that can be, it's good to sit around the dinner table and say to your child, I had a shilah today. I didn't know what to do. A shilah with Yom Kippur, a shilah with this, a shilah with Sukkot. Let's ask a Rav. Or maybe if you have to show your lulav or esrog to a Rav, take them to the Rav. Build that culture of asking shilas, going to a Rav, having a Rav's number, so that children know that's how you grow up in a Jewish house. You ask a shilah, you find out. You don't just decide on your own, but you find out the right thing to do. The second thing is, we know that minhagim are so important, and minhagim have a tremendous impact. We know this, the Rebbe's Sikha about Manishtana, why we start with Matbilin first, because a minhag has the most impact on a child's life, and so on and so forth. Around Chodesh Tishrei, there are so many minhagim. And different families have different minhagim. When I grew up in my house, my mother was makabel from her mother to all different shapes. There were different shapes of chalas. There were the round chalas for Rosh Hashanah. There was hand chalas and ladder chalas, Erev Kippur, Matzim Kippur, Shen Rabbah. And they were very makpid, and it left a tremendous impression on me. Every family perhaps has different minhagim, every community has different minhagim, and so on and so forth. But don't be mezalzel minhagim chas v'sholem. Erev Kippur, make sure there's a proper avir of Erev Kippur at the home. You know, people know they have to eat Erev Kippur, but there needs to be proper two sudas lay the table like Shabbos. Kreplach is an important minhag, lekach is an important minhag, beten lekach, to ask for lekach, take your children with you, explain to them the minhagim. All these different minhagim are so important. Again, the lead up, discuss them in Hagim before. Birkas Habonim, you're going to give a bracha to your children before Kol Nidre. Don't just wait till Kol Nidre and all of a sudden it's something you just spring upon them. Talk about it before. Explain to them how the Rebbe would give a bracha to Bachrim. Build up the minhag, emphasize minhagim, tell stories of minhagim, and so on and so forth. Hashan Rabbah is another one. I have heard, I don't know if this is probably not true to this audience that I'm talking to, but I've heard that some people are a bit lax when it comes to the Su'udah of Hashan Rabbah. Hashan Rabbah is a very important day. Minhag Yisrael to have a proper Su'udah with honey, chal and honey. And Hashan Rabbah, an important inyan, don't just gloss over it, even though it's a weekday, it's a Chol HaMoed, but it's an important thing. Talking about Chol HaMoed is a complicated time. First of all, the halachas of Chol HaMoed. Again, things you discuss with your children, halachas Chol HaMoed are complicated. Often we have many shilas. There are those, of course, that have a heter to work, dover avud, and so on and so forth. But even that, maybe it shouldn't just be a given. You know, sometimes children grow up when their parents have to do things that shasat chak or b'di'eved, but they don't know it's for shasat chak or b'di'eved. For sometimes, for example, this is true also, people on shlichus sometimes need to do things which are halachically okay, but that's a heter, it's a shasat chak from iftsoim or from a carving of the yidden, and so on and so forth. It's very important to be mechanech children. This we asked the shaila. It is a b'di'eved, it's not the ideal, but we're doing it for this and this reason. So when it comes to Chol HaMoed, the same thing. Chol HaMoed is a big area of instilling Yiras Shamayim and Shmiras HaMitzvos. Go over the halachas of Chol HaMoed, explain to them what the chashivus of Chol HaMoed is. Make sure to if you need to work, explain to them why you're working. But even those who need to go to work on Chol HaMoed and so on, but it's important maybe to come a little bit earlier, to go a little bit later if you can. Try have a Chol HaMoed meal together so the children absorb that it's a yontif, not just a regular weekday. And all of those type of things which will all together sort of create a culture that mitzvahs are important, Shulchan Aruch is important, Hidurei mitzvah is important, and B'chlal, we have the schus and the chavivus to be able to keep the mitzvahs. One of the things, going back to this nakuda of Mesiras Nefesh, where we are taught that we have to teach children not only B'chol Avavcha, B'chol Nashcha, but B'chol Ba'idecha as well. One of the things that are important to do is to explain to children the tremendous schus that we have today, that we're able to keep these mitzvahs with such ease, with such resources. Tell them stories of Chassidim and Yidden that had to be moist and nefesh to eat in a sukkah, that had to risked their lives to get a lulav and an esrog, that had to just go out of their way tremendously to fast Yom Kippur or to keep them in Hogim of Tishrei, because they need to get a sense. Stories of Mesiras Nefesh are really, really important, because then we point out that even when it's a little bit difficult today and things are busy and things are stressful a bit, Baruch Hashem, this should be our stress. Baruch Hashem, we only have to go a little bit out of our way, but it's a schus and a happiness, a simcha, to be able to go out of our way to serve the Eibishter and do his mitzvahs. So these are just a few nakudas on the inyan of chinuch, of mitzvahs, and in Yerushalayim, particularly the mitzvahs of Chodesh Tishrei. Again, build an avir, talk about it, discussion, lead up, get involve your children in building a sukkah and buying Abba Minim, in all the minhagim, explain the minhagim, so that it becomes not just things that get done every few days, just things that get done every so often, but it becomes a whole process, a whole journey, a whole avir, a whole culture, that it's a month where everyone is busy, as the Medrash says, Ze oisek b'sukkosei v'ze oisek b'lulovei, and therefore we don't have time to do anything that is negative, chas v'sholem, because the whole family just gets involved in Inyone Kedusha and Inyone Yontif throughout the whole month. And once again, the Eibishter is a holfen, and the schus of trying to upgrade our chinuch, just talking about chinuch already gives a chayes. Just getting out of our way. The Eibishter always says, Piskali k'chudei shel machat. The Eibishter wants us just to do a little bit, but the Eftach l'chav k'piskei shel ulam, and the Eibishter says he'll respond tremendously, he'll respond with much, much, much greater brachas. And as we said, Nar Yisrael v'oyaveyu, we are the Eibishter's kinder, and therefore by taking care of his children, by trying to be mechanech, the youngest children, the Eibishter will look upon us, kerachem av al bonim, and give us all a freilich and yontif, a gemar chesimet toive, and a good gebench to Yontiv and a good gebench to Yor, for us and for the entire Klal Yisrael. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you once again.